Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Today I wanted to go back and revisit a series of videos that I've been doing a while ago, and these are on specializations in the Division 2. One of the really important things about this is actually your skill tree, or one of the many skill trees that you have, and it will really expose to you how much of an RPG the Division is. And I think this is what makes the Division quite exciting and interesting and a little bit more complex than many other looter shooters that you're going to pick up. So if you are a Division 2 agent and you're new here, this is a video that I would encourage you to take some time in watching. I also have another set of videos regarding specializations, and you'll see some from the old specialization setups because they've actually been changed, and you'll be able to understand a little bit on how to deal with them. So first of all, specializations are only available to you at the end game. So when you reach level 30, and you're making your way from World Tier 1 through World Tier 5, you're basically able to get yourself one of these specializations. Depending on the package that you buy, some of the specializations you're going to have to unlock in a different way. So I'll tell you, the Technician, the Gunner, the Firewall specializations, if you do not have Season 1's pass, you're going to have to do field research activities in order to be able to access them and then start to unlock them. But if you have them, you can just access them, and then the field research activities, basically these, give you extra perks and give you extra items that I would encourage you to actually go for and get, because some of these items are actually pretty good. You don't find them just randomly in the open world. You really do need them. An example of one of those will be this particular chest piece that comes in the Gunner specialization. It's called the Vedmistia vest, and it has a perfect talent that I'm going to be showing you today. I'm going to be showing you a talent, but it's not the perfect version. But if you want a perfect version, you can get that. So my sights are going to be set on another specialization for this video, which is a Sharpshooter Specialization. I'll explain this specialization in the perspective of builds and all of the stuff that it does. So first of all, the Sharpshooter Specialization is designed with a specialization weapon called the TAC 50. It's a high-end, high-caliber marksman rifle, and we're going to start off from some of the passive, talents as well, and we'll look at how that affects my build as we go on. So the first passive talent that I'm going to highlight is the Breath Control talent. It's a tier 3 talent, and it gives you 15% increased weapon stability, reduced recoil, and faster requisition of targets. So this is actually very good for your agent. So if you're using a weapon that's actually very challenging to handle, one of the things that this is going to give you is going to give you good weapon handling. One of the really cool things about this game is if you're going to use a marksman build, this is definitely the weapon that you need to use. There's some weapons that are actually very challenging to run, some rifles, some marksman rifles. People usually prefer using the Sharpshooter Specialization in order to get that extra weapon balance, because your shots are not as high and you don't have too much room or margin for error. So this is why that particular talent, this is why it's actually pretty good in regard to your build. And again, you have your emergency cleanse. This is your armor kits repair 100% of your armor, remove status effect, and increases resistance to bleed, poison, and burn, because you have a lot of enemy NPCs that will try to hit you, because you're going to be playing a lot in cover when you're using a build like this, because you need a little bit more balance. And so that's one really cool thing. Now to the damage stats. You have a stat here that's called 1 in the head. It basically increases your headshot damage with rifles and marksman rifles by 15%, basically allowing for precision kills. Now, let's look at my build and let's start to evaluate my build from that perspective. I'm running a build here using my Merciless Exotic Rifle. This rifle has a weird firing mechanism, but it really does a good job, and I want to land a lot of headshots, number one, in my rifle, and I also want to be able to have some good balance. So what I do is, because the rifles come with critical hit damage as they usually come with it as an attribute, I also want to leverage that critical hit paradigm and also engage in some rifle paradigm as well as some headshot paradigm. So for that, I'm using a build that's going to highlight 15% headshot damage. If I'm using this item, a Providence item, doesn't matter where it is, be it my chest piece, my backpack, or whatever, I get an extra 15% headshot damage. Now I've just leveraged that 15% damage that I get with this specialization, and then now I have a total of 30% headshot damage just because I've built in synergy with my specialization. Does that make sense? Now you're going to see this theme recur in almost every build and almost every specialization as you continue to go through the game. Another thing too is the grenade. Now the flashbang grenade basically doesn't seem to deal any damage. So when you look at the grenades and you start to rate them, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. But what I noticed the other day in running this was I threw the grenade and the enemy NPCs were able to just stand there long enough and complain for me to be able to mow them down with my headshots. And I think that's where the beauty of this grenade lies. I hope that the developers would increase the duration of this, because some enemy NPCs basically just ignore a lot of status effects. I don't think that should be the case. I think some status effects, if they really want to get the game balanced, should actually have a better duration because they don't deal damage. They should at least have that effect that they keep the enemy NPCs in a state where you can actually then burst them down with your weapon or your skills. So that's an argument that we're still having down the road. Also, your signature weapon is able to deal more damage, so about 40% signature damage. It's actually pretty good. And then you have basically a group synergy. Basically says killing enemies with headshots adds 1 to your group's ammo bar, except from your signature weapon. So as you're taking down enemy NPCs, you're helping your group out. This is the fun part of this particular specialization as well. And then you also have basically killing enemies with headshots adds 2 to the ammo bar, and basically except from signature weapons. So this is basically for you, and then 1 for your group as well. It's not too strong basically in what it's doing. Some other specializations kick its butt, but I think the Sharpshooter was actually designed for, a very passive group influence, if you get what I mean. Some specializations have very huge ramifications if you wear them in a group. So that's something that you have to, go on lookout for in regard to that. And then every specialization comes with a specific skill mod that's not available to others. In regard to the Sharpshooter, you have the Tactician. So the Tactician's job basically scouts and marks targets and feeds them to you in your HUD. And one of the really cool thing is you can find targets that are hiding or chilling behind specific locations. I think something like this is, if you want to run a build like this, maybe in I would say the Summit. I almost said Underground. In the Summit, you can actually have this actually active, and it will be helping you kind of seek out targets. But I would say in the Summit, depending on the difficulty you're playing, I don't know if a build like this will work for you, because if you're playing Legendary, they would not give you enough time of the day for you to sit down and cover and mark them and start to shoot them with headshots. You really have to be very precise, have a very good setup, or be basically a prodigy when it comes to hitting headshots to be able to enjoy the benefit of this, because enemy NPCs run around all the time. And then you also have your Sharpshooter uniform. Pointless. I hate the fact that you have these. It's just a waste, in my opinion. Then you also have your mods that help you to buff specific weapon choices that you need, and you only have a maximum of 3. We have a thing in the Division community where it makes no difference. Actually, you'd rather just be better off being able to just max out all of these, or they can put all the points into this particular weapon tree, and once you fill it up, it will max out all your weapons. So if you're in combat, you run out of weapons, at least you can take on the specific weapon damage, and it will roll over to other weapons rather than coming back to the base of operations, respecing, and then going back to all that stuff. That's crazy. And then you also have a digital scope, which is an digital aiming device that basically helps with long top rails. It's actually pretty good, and I'll show you that digital scope. You can use it on your rifles. You can use it on your assault rifles if you actually want. Now let's go into your tactical link. Basically, all group members that are close to you, they get 10% headshot damage. So if a bunch of you are using, basically your M1As or whatever, all of you are going to be giving each other that extra 10% headshot damage. So there's a lot of damage that goes into that. And then you also have My Home is My Castle. You get extra armor gained while you're in cover, because like I said, the playstyle is hoping that you're going to be in cover. So that's what it's going to do. And then basically after 20 seconds in cover, you start regenerating 5% marksman rifle ammo every 10 seconds. So that's one of the really cool parts about this build, is you don't have to really worry too much about your ammo depletion. It's something that it's definitely going to regenerate back while you're sitting in cover. It's actually pretty cool the way they've done it. Now, let's go back and look at other details about the build, and I'll show you guys a few things. Now, for my chest piece, my vest, I'm using the Overlord chest piece, which gives me 10% rifle damage. Remember, I'm using rifles here. I'm not using marksman rifles. There's a big, huge, massive, ginormous difference between both of them. Not only with caliber, but just for the fact that this game, you really got to know your terminology as well. If you look here, this is a marksman rifle. There are others in the non-exotic class as well. I don't remember if I have any here to show you guys. Some of them are bolt action, and some of them are even semi-auto. So if you're using the marksman rifle that's called the SVD, what you're going to notice is the SVD is a semi-auto versus, say, one of these bolt action marksman rifles. So be very careful in looking and learning and trying to see what they actually do for your build. And with, basically the SVD and there's another weapon that I don't really use that's also bolt action. It's actually very bad on stability, but there are things that you can do to actually make up for it. And that's where my build is, something I wanted to showcase so that you guys could see. I'm using the chest piece called Braced. While you're in cover, weapon handling is increased by 45%. So a lot of the playstyle as well is influenced by my specialization, because if you guys remember, some of the really cool perks that I saw that I mentioned here actually have to deal with you being in cover. Like my home is my castle, and also while you're sitting in cover, after 20 seconds in cover, you start generating 5 marksman rifle ammo basically while you're chilling there. It's actually pretty good, and rifle ammo as well. So it's actually pretty good. Your playstyle is heavily influenced by how you're using your specialization as well. And then I also am using different perks. I'm using the Grupo Sombra knee pads, and I'm using it for explosive damage because I'm running this particular rifle. It does have an explosive damage component, and so that's why I'm using 2 pieces in order to boost that explosive damage. But largely, the critical hit damage is also very important to me because that's actually pretty good. And then for my knee pads, I'm also using the Fox Spirit knee pads. It does a good job with damage to targets out of cover. And I have some armor regen here, and I need to go max this out to get my full 15% weapon damage. And then as well, I'm using a Cheska mask to give me some critical hit chance so that my critical hits can be much better when it comes down to it. Now, let's go and look at that particular mod that I told you about that's only available to you to sight, to scope when you're using this particular specialization. They're no longer allowing for it to be, well, it can't go on all assault rifles, but it can go on most. I think it can go on a P416. So let's look at that. So this particular scope allows for you to be able to gain 45% headshot damage. And I've been known to actually use it on on assault rifles as my secondary weapon when I'm running this specialization. Now, one of the really interesting things is I get a lot of criticisms about this, but to be very honest, I don't care. I really like the way it hits so hard because yes, I may not hit all my shots, but man, the ones that I hit, they are insane. Look at this. I'm hitting over 500,000 for headshot damage on my assault rifle because I'm using this. It's insane. And I get it with my braced, I get a lot more weapon stability. So I basically beam headshots for my secondary weapon if I'm going to use it. Now, enemy NPCs don't make it that easy. Don't get me wrong, but it's actually pretty cool. So as I'm running and staying in cover, because when I play my weapon-based builds, I love to stay in cover with them. And so I can basically use this weapon that has very poor stability, by the way. If you guys have ever used the Merciless Exotic, or if you ever use it, its stability is poor. You really need a lot of help. And let me just show you an example of that. Let me just swap this chest piece, and then you can see basically what this weapon, looks like when you're shooting it. Look at that kickback. I can't even hit those shots consistently, and I'm losing all kinds of weapon handling bonuses. But when I'm using braced, it becomes basically a laser beam. Now, I told you as well, too, that getting that gunner specialization, doing all of the field requirements, you can get the perfect version of braced, which actually feels much better. But the only thing is it comes with this particular brand, which is the Petrov defensive brand. But to be very fair, if I was running on the side, say an LMG, I would have no problems in running it because my knee pads already are Overlord knee pads. So I still get to keep my rifle damage while having the perfect version of this particular weapon. So in fact, now not only is this now a laser beam, I can beam headshots consistently with it. In basically the same spot, I can land my damage if I really did want to. So a specialization is not necessarily based on the specialization weapon. It is a skill tree that does complement your build, your play style, and even your team synergy. So I wanted to highlight this specialization and talk in depth about it so that you guys as new players can understand what it does provide with you in in regard to your player and your player power. So go ahead and donate. When you're running through missions to get the points that are needed, you would have to actually put it on to get those points to influence it. You can't keep it on the side and run your favorite specialization if you want to level it up. So that's another thing of note. And I hope I've been as thorough as I can be with a video like this. These videos are challenging to make. That's why not many people make them, but I take the time to actually go through them, and I'll be going through the rest of them one by one to try to at least serve you guys that are new players in understanding the meat and potatoes of them. If you have any questions, ask them in the comment section, or you can jump into the Gamey Daddy Discord and you can ask questions, and I'm sure there are people that will be happy to answer these questions for you. That's all for today. Thank you very much for your time and audience. I appreciate your patience. Hopefully we'll see in another video. Peace.